What's happening, family? My fellow Eagles. So, here is a very quick video about the positions I took on Euro USD yesterday after posting the ideas. So, yeah, let's dive into it and do a really quick walkthrough and what I can expect from this point on, right? So, yeah, we are on the 15-minute time frame, and as we can see, right, so basically all my entries were based around this here, well, POI, after seeing a obvious reaction. Initially this one was here, right, to see if I could get any kind of reaction from there, and this POI being decisional, this one being, well, let's call it the extreme one, right? But as we can see, right, price smashed basically right through that POI, and it did the same for that extreme one. However, after a obvious reaction from around this area, I basically moved that POI here to this point here. Now, why is that? Because this wick was the area where price obviously was reacting to, right? So, and besides that, it took out the previous candle to the left, right? So in doing so, it also kind of retested this here. So yeah, I can definitely understand why price, instead of reacting from this here POI, was reacting from this here, right? So at that point, obviously, I went to the lower time frame and got my entries. And basically what I did was I put my stop loss at this level here, just in case if price decides to, you know, instead of mitigate this here POI, to, well, liquidate, right? Because on the lower time frame, we will see that basically this was also our engineered liquidity internal, nevertheless, right? From this here, well, corrective phase, so to say, after this here impulsive move, right? So yeah, after price missed our area of interest POI, where I expect for the price to continue down at some point, right? It basically came and it reacted from that area. So I thought I saw an opportunity to buy at least until here, and then perhaps if we can see any kind of reaction we can utilize, right, by just following simply our rules, strategies, concepts, system, then I will look for a sell position at least until here, right, like that. Now obviously the price may go a little bit higher to perhaps take out this here liquidity point, right? Like something like that, right? So it is possible, but at least I will get out of my short-term buy positions at this here area, right? And if I can see either a reaction from within, let's say, this area here, or perhaps a liquidation even, right, like that perhaps, and then price does something like that along the way, and, you know, give me a internal shock, whatever, yeah, I can still look for the sells at that point, right? Now, for the time being, looking at the 15-minute time frame, I think, you know, it is quite normal that price is reacting from, you know, where price action is now here, right? Now, let's just observe why. Because I think this here smart money trap has manipulated the first wave of sellers from this here order block or smart money trap, right? And now the second wave of sellers, right? So imagine that everyone has put their stop losses here, right? Like that, right? So this whole area becomes a bed of liquidity, right? So at some point, I think price will target those on those and then just collect those stop losses. While doing so, it will come and hopefully retest and mitigate this year POI. Now, why do I think that will happen? Because one, well, obviously this here is that entire order flow, right, like that. And this blue colored rectangle is basically the refined order block, or point of interest, area of interest, however you want to call it, right, of that order flow here. Right now, this one has definitely my attention, because not only this wick took out the previous candle to the left, right, it also created efficiency at this year candle, which in return did basically the same, took out the candle to the left, right. And then I spotted basically this year imbalance or fair value gap, open price gap, however you want to call it, just sitting below that PY, right? So, and I do believe, let me just quickly draw a line here. Yeah, it's just missed here to fill up that fair value gap, right, as we can see. So I expect that price indeed at some point may even target this year area. If it's not the POI, it should at least be this year fair value gap. Now, if I see obvious reactions like a lot of wicks and everything, right, I will consider of getting out instead of holding my trace until my initial TP. If I see a reaction from within this year fair value gap, I can decide to do so, right, to get out earlier and guarantee at least some profits. Now, another reason I think that price will continue higher is because, well, obviously we cannot see it here on the higher time frame, but on the lower time frame I just missed a potential entry here. But don't worry, guys. As usual, I am collecting a lot of screenshots and at least of all the before and after screenshots of my entries, but along the way. Let's go to the 3-minute time frame. Now let me zoom in a little bit to the area here, like that. Nope, that's a little bit too much. Yeah, I think, yeah, this will might do the trick. Yes, sir. All right. Now, yesterday I basically missed a re-entry at this point, but later on, when I posted the screenshots, of the potential ideas and from all before-after screenshots, you will see that I was explaining that at some point I was noticing here our liquidity, right? And since this is the lower time frame, technically one could even say that this could be our liquidity point, right? Yeah, like on the higher time frame, this year is basically this one does not validate this as a pullback because price has to close above it, right? But on the lower time frames, like 1 minute, 3 minute, we can make an exception because, there is a lot of more, manipulating going on, and the price is way fast pacer and all that, right? But, just sticking to my own rules, I thought, well, at least we had that pullback and here that close above this high. So that's why I was looking at this here, right, as my liquidity point. And after price liquidated this here liquidity point like that, basically I saw it like that, right? I noticed, okay, price came and it basically reacted to this here candle. Right now, why this candle is important? Because it took out the previous candle to the left, right? So it could act as a POI with that liquidity sitting. So basically, I saw a structure-wise entry type 1 model here, right? After that, I noticed liquidation, check, mitigation, check, obvious reaction, candle close above the candle that came into this PY and closed. So here a single candle mitigation entry, right? I was thinking about doing that, and you know, I could have basically entered here with a stop loss, perhaps you know, a little bit more here. Now, why is that? Because there is still a very minor, I believe. Oh no, it also filled up that fair value gap here while mitigating that you know, POI here. But nevertheless, I thought, well, it may still come into this year POI, right? So basically, let me go back. Yeah, like entry here, stop loss there, and then TP again the same. Now, had I done that, obviously I would have scaled in. In this case, I was a little bit, you know, hesitated, because at some point I thought, well, if this here is now my structure-wise liquidity, right, price may come and take out that liquidity. While doing so, in this case, perhaps it may mitigate something here, right, and then perhaps continue higher. But obviously it did not, and at this point I am already running like 13 positions identical of my first entry, and I have another 8 identical positions of my second entry here, right? So I know the rewards are, you know, for my doing a little bit, well, not unusual, but more realistic, I guess, right? Because as we can see here, this position is just a 4R, and this one is just a 5R. But nevertheless, right? I mean, you gotta be well, strategically with your stop loss, because if I had put my stop loss very tight here, look what would have happened, right? I would have been stopped out at least of, you know, a certain amount of positions here. I believe it was 8, and by the time price came here, I also had like 3 positions of my second position, and you know, after I noticed, okay, price came, did just a liquidity sweep, and at some point I thought, well, it came back to create efficiency here, right? Because there was technically no liquidation in this here whole move, right? So basically what I was seeing at some point was entry type 3, right? Not only these ones got liquidated and price closed above, but also this one, right? Now, obviously, this being that pullback, so price came, did its liquidity sweep here before giving me that, you know, shock or boss to the upside. It came back to create that efficiency. So when I saw that, I started to scale in at this and this position after seeing a reaction, coming back again, basically the same thing here. So along the way, I obviously scaled in, but that's another story. And that's why I did not scale in at some point here, right? With my entry there, stop loss there, because I already had you know, at some point like 21 positions running when price was here, and I thought, well, let me just try to manage those positions instead of, you know, scaling in along the way. So yeah, and as we can see here, this one I was you know, intentionally was going to show you guys before price came here, that, you know, during the recording, but unfortunately price came already there. Now, obviously, why this happened then, right? Because let us have a look here, right? So we have our Asian Open here, and we have our London Open, right? Like that. And basically what we can see, this was our Asian high, right? Like that. And this was our Asian low, right? So basically what happened here at the London Open at this point, we can say well, London did take out Asian low, right? And Asia was pretty much ranging even, right, between this here whole area, right? So basically what I saw was, okay, London did take out Asian low, and we can expect at least some, move to the upside, right? And that did happen, right? And then London came and it also took out Asian high. While doing so, it did a very minor close above the Asian high, nevertheless, right here. So at that point, I thought, well, at least from the higher time frame, price may do one of two things, right? Because we have now somewhat our, let's say, major structure, so major liquidity, right? So now that London has taken out Asian low, it may continue higher, but it will not presumably do it like that, with the New York Open, right? Because New York Open is at this point, right? So at some point with the New York Open, price will look presumably for a internal liquidity or major liquidity, and both in this case are presented by the London session, as in our major liquidity sits here, right after London session opened here, but within this here single push to the upside, right, our single leg, we can also see, okay, we have basically our internal liquidity sitting here, right? So price still may or may not target that internal liquidity of the London session here, and then presumably it may continue higher, right? If not, right, then we can even say, okay, technically, let's have a look. We had our most recent internal, well, lower time frame liquidity sitting here, right? Obviously, we had here some kind of POI sitting, right, like that. Obviously, to me at least, this is in this case, a smart money trap, right? As in, it's a decisional POI. Yes, there was fair value gap between liquidity and my, well, POI here, right? But imagine how many, well, retail traders, but also smart money traders were looking at price action like this, right? So we had our BUS here, and they probably see this also as a BUS, right? And that's why they think, well, this was that order block where the strength came from, like that, to break both this and this one to the upside as a BUS. But, actually, yeah, it is a valid BUS to the upside, but they are not looking at it like we are looking at price action, right? They just look at those every time price closes like this above it, they call it a BUS, right? But technically, we know when to validate a valid or at least a confirmed BUS, right? So at this point, because I know, well, most traders will look for buys here, right? I will not jump into hastily, right, from around this area, because it creates, again, liquidity at this point. Now, remember, guys, technically, our liquidity was sitting here, but you have to think a little bit of three-dimensionally, right? If everyone is entering here, right? I mean, even if this is technically a valid liquidity point, right? Like internal inducement, if people are looking for entries at this here, well, order block, and then all the stop losses will collect below it, right? So that's why price came here, gave a reaction, and then hunt those stop losses. While doing so, look, it indeed did take out now not only those stop losses which were collected below this one, but it also came and reacted from this here POI, right? So Now, basically, we have somewhat of a structure-wise entry model here, right? Now, this area is definitely now prices also creating efficiency at this point, so I can expect at some point for price to go higher. If not, then I know the reason why, right? It will target this here. Remember, liquidity, like I showed you guys earlier, like that. And perhaps after that, it will continue higher, right? So that's basically how I see it. And yeah, like on the current time frame, we can even say that this is technically our internal liquidity, right? Because this is the deeper pullback instead of, you know, focusing on these very minor pullbacks. Because remember, we are on the lower time frame. Technically, this is not wrong, right? Technically, this is definitely a valid internal liquidity point, as in inducement. But, you know, instead of focusing too much on those microstructures every time, because at some point, if we are mistaking, right, and we say, okay, we had a entry model 1 here, yeah, I mean, I can totally agree. But remember, this is all microstructure, right? It happened within this here single leg of already my internal structure here, right? So there's a little bit of the difference at how I look, at least at price action, right? But again, me personally, I will notice this as my single leg. From my major structure, this was that corrective phase, and this was that impulsive phase before that, right? So I will only look in this single leg for basically my you know, the pullback, which I can identify here, right? So either after price comes here, I will be interested in potentially scaling in, right? Or if price does not give me any kind of setup signal confluence here, and it gets here, and after that it will perhaps give me the confluences or signals that I am looking for you know, potential scale in positions, right? And again, technically this could not be, you know, wrong, I guess, but then I will rather look at it like this: liquidation, mitigation. Because why? This is now basically my internal structure of my internal structure, as in you know, microstructure. So I don't focus too much on this here, right? Because I already gave you that this could be a potential smart money trap. This could be where the liquidity will be collected. That's why I rather see this as my liquidity point and this as my potential POI, where price may react from, right? At this point, like that, before continuing higher. Or again, it may just continue down, take out this one, and then continue higher, right? So that's basically the part where we have to be patient. But if we go back to the 15-minute time frame, yeah, like on the 15-minute time frame, as I mentioned, right, we can see something like this happen. But you know, since this is the 15-minute time frame, look here, we don't have an actual close above this previous high here. So basically this does not count as a liquidity point, right, on the 15-minute time frame. So basically the last liquidity point on the 15-minute time frame can be perhaps, well, this point, right? And here that liquidity was definitely taken out, but then price did not close above, so we can expect at some point a little bit of retracement. That's why this here single leg on the lower time frame is important, right? Because that way we can see, well, it did close above it, all right, like earlier here. And also, more importantly, we can utilize that single leg on a 50-minute time frame to identify thus where our liquidity switch like this, right? So basically internal liquidity here. In this case, if price comes here to create efficiency at this point instead of liquidating it, I would be a little bit cautious, right? Because again, this may still be a proper setup, right? But because it's micro, right? I rather look at it like this. This is my liquidity, and this here perhaps my POI, right? Like that. And then I will look at it like this here, right? Like that. If I was looking for any kind of internal entries like this, right? Because otherwise, remember, this is my major liquidity, and below that major liquidity, let's see, there is still, I believe, here, where is that? This one was, yeah, but this may be also an area, right, where price may or may not react from, because I believe here fair value gap is filled. This here POI is retested by this one, and then yeah, I guess this is also a retest, but price did not close below, I mean within. This one is also retested, I guess, right? So yeah, let's just have a look what price will do from this point on. But obviously, I will be cautious around these areas, and not jump too quickly into positions, because if it were here around these pinnacle points, right, then by all means, as we can see, I also scaled in 13 positions here and 8 positions here along the way, and before price closed above this one, right? So now that price has closed above this year high, I will be a little bit more cautious, because now technically price has every reason to come back, right? But let's see what happens here, right? So price is reacting from that area, still no liquidity taking place. So even if price takes off here, right, I would not enter, me personally, because it does not fit my rules, or at least I don't trade those like micro structures like this, right? I rather wait. If I miss a position out, then so be it, right? But I can avoid also a loss, a potential loss. To me, that's more important, right? I would rather wait until this year liquidity is taken out, and then perhaps, get any kind of signal after that to look for entries, right? But if not, I will be patient. I will wait patiently, because then price indeed may target this one before then giving a internal choke here, and then do it like that. Now, these are just the entries that I would look for. But if you are a little bit aggressive on especially the lower time frames, and if you don't mind to trade these micro structures, as I like to call it, by all means, just go with it if you feel comfortable in taking those positions. But just realize that they are more like decisional than high probability, and the highest probability is, to me, always my major area like that, right? And in this case, I could say, well, if I am considering any kind of decisional entry, it will be from around this year internal liquidity, right? Not from this year micro one, or not even perhaps from a nano structure, if there is again a lag within a lag. By that I mean basically, okay, if we have our major structure like that and we have our internal structure like that, well, this one and this one is more than enough for me. Obviously, if there is some internal inducement and internal engineered liquidity, I will keep my eyes on both of them, right? So basically this area, or this area, but I don't focus on those micro structures like this one or nano structures like that one. So a pullback within a single leg of the smaller single leg before the leg before that, if that makes sense. So yeah, now let's just see what price will do then from this point on, right? Because I think let's go here and just look at the 3-minute chart, right? So yeah, I can expect, I think, a liquidation of this year and perhaps a reaction from this year POI before price continues higher. But it also may obviously continue higher from this point, right? But we will see. So that's basically a very quick walkthrough to the price action, right? And as for why I took the positions here, and why I was confident to scale in, why I did not scale in along the way here on the lower time frame, and even on the 50-minute time frame, we could have perhaps look at it like this, right? As I mentioned earlier, we had our most recent liquidity sitting here. Price reacted from this here wick and go to the lower time frame here and then look for scale in, right? If I had done so, I would have definitely gotten out here. Again, why? Because these are entries from areas from internal structure, right? In this case, on my 50-minute time frame. So entry from around internal areas is exit also around the most recent high, because we don't know if price immediately will shoot to the upside like that, or in this case, like it is trying to perhaps manipulate more sellers, right? Second wave at this point here, especially if one looks at this and see this as a swing failure pattern of some kind, right? They may think, okay, price may come here, and they also try to sell, and that's fine, right? But at this point, yeah, like the tricky thing is price may come here, but price also may just continue higher and do something like that, right? So, and if that happens and price does now close above this year high, then this year is basically now your liquidity point, right? Like that. Oh, sorry. Like that. Right? So, and at that point, again, before it may continue higher, it may come down, take out that liquidity like that, and then perhaps, again, continue higher. But yeah, that's the beauty of it, right? It's all coming down to probability, and we are just utilizing, or at least try to utilize those probabilities, right, to our best abilities, and to take that to our advantage at least. So let's just see what price will do from this point. And once I have either closed my positions or... Oh, just a second, guys. Here we go. Yeah, so basically what I'm hoping for, obviously, since it's Friday, before New York closes, that price will hit my TP, or at least will come very close to it, because then I could definitely consider of exiting earlier, like I mentioned. If not, well, I will just see what will happen, right? So now price is about to take out this here liquidity point, as I mentioned, but you know, only if I see a like very good confluence, I could consider perhaps in, you know, scaling in positions like this along the way, but then, you know, it still has reason to take me out, right, at some point, and come back and take out major liquidity and then continue higher. So should the first, well, potential third scale in here, should that fail, I know the reason why, and I also know what to look for, where to look for another potential re-entry of that scale in that, you know, backfires, let's say, at this point, right? So I hope this video was a little bit useful and informative to you guys. And as always, if you have questions, then, you know, don't hesitate to ask me. Once I have closed my positions, or, you know, once I have exited my positions, either before or after hitting their TP, you know, I will basically post all the screenshots that I took of you know, the before and after entries, right? So until then, I wish everyone a blessed day, and also a you know, blessed weekend in advance with their families and loved ones. All right, family, stay healthy, everyone, and talk to you guys soon. Ciao.